Tony Iommi and Ozzy Osbourne were more than just bandmates. They were brothers, in a strange, twisted kind of way. Born just a few streets apart in Birmingham, England, they grew up in the smoke and struggle of working-class life. Tony had his guitar, Ozzy had his wild voice and even wilder spirit. Together, they helped create a sound the world had never heard before. They were the fathers of heavy metal, and their band, Black Sabbath, became a legend. But behind the loud guitars and sold-out tours, there was something deeper, a connection that lasted more than 50 years. Even when Ozzy was fired from the band, even through addiction, fights, and long periods of silence, Tony always felt close to Ozzy. In a recent interview, Tony opened up about something deeply personal, seeing Ozzy for what might have been the last time. And what Ozzy said to him? It still echoes in Tony's heart. "I was quite shocked," Tony admitted. "It was emotional. It was sad. But it was beautiful, too." This wasn't just about music anymore. It was about life, age, and time running out. Because Ozzy, the Prince of Darkness, is not doing well. Years of health issues, Parkinson's disease, surgeries. Ozzy has been through hell and back. And though he keeps fighting, his body can no longer take the stage the way it once did. That's why this final meeting between the two legends means so much. Not just for Tony, but for everyone who ever loved Black Sabbath. And for fans who know that nothing, not even metal, lasts forever. The last time they played together. It was 2022. The Birmingham Commonwealth Games. A massive event in their hometown. And for one unforgettable night, just one Ozzy and Tony were back on stage together. With fireworks bursting over the city and thousands of fans screaming, it felt like magic. But what most people didn't know? Ozzy was in pain. He had just undergone serious spinal surgery. Doctors had warned him not to perform. Friends had told him to rest. Even his wife, Sharon, was nervous. But Ozzy said, "I'm doing this. I need to." Tony remembers the moment Ozzy walked on stage. He was fragile, Tony said, but he gave everything. You could feel it. They played Paranoid, the same song they'd made famous 50 years earlier. The riffs were sharp. Ozzy's voice was raw, but powerful. For a few minutes, it was like time turned back. When the song ended, Ozzy looked at Tony. "He smiled at me," Tony said, "and that was it. We didn't need to say much. It was all there in the music." After the show, they hugged, not as rock stars, but as old friends. Tony didn't know it at the time, but that might be the last time he'll ever play live with Ozzy. That thought haunts him still. And when they met again in private, that's when Ozzy told him something that would stay with him forever. A private moment no one saw. Months after that final show, Tony went to visit Ozzy at home. It was just the two of them. No cameras, no managers, just two old friends catching up. But what Tony saw that day broke his heart. Ozzy looked tired, he said. You could see the pain in his eyes, but he still had that sparkle, that sense of humor. They talked about old times, the early gigs, the mischief, the fights, the madness. They laughed about the time Ozzy shaved off Tony's eyebrows while he was sleeping on tour. They remembered when Sabbath almost broke up because of Ozzy's drinking, and how somehow they still found their way back. But then the mood changed. Ozzy looked Tony in the eye, and he said, "I don't know how much longer I've got, mate." Tony froze. "I didn't know what to say," he admitted, "because I could feel it. He wasn't being dramatic. He was being honest." Then Ozzy added something else. "But I'm glad I got to play with you one more time. That meant everything to me." Tony sat there, silent, a lifetime of memories rushing back. All the years, the battles, the music, the bond. That one sentence hit harder than any riff Tony had ever played. "He's still my brother." Tony Iommi has always been the quiet one, the serious one, the man with the dark riffs and the finger injury that helped create the Sabbath sound. But when it comes to Ozzy, Tony softens. "I know he's done crazy things," Tony says. "He's driven me mad over the years, but he's still my brother. Through all the chaos, and there's been a lot, that brotherhood never really broke. Even when Black Sabbath fired Ozzy in 1979 due to his out-of-control drug use, Tony still worried about him. "I didn't want him to die," Tony says. "That was my biggest fear." And when Ozzy started his solo career and became even bigger than before, Tony watched with pride, not jealousy. They were linked forever. Eve. And when they didn't speak for years, even when managers, lawyers, and egos got in the way, it was always Ozzy and Tony, the soul of Sabbath. That's why that final meeting, the one where Ozzy spoke from his heart, meant so much. It wasn't about albums, or fame, or money. It was about something no one else could understand. Two men who changed music, who survived decades of madness, who loved each other like brothers even when they didn't say it. Ozzy's health battle and Tony's fear. For years now, fans have watched Ozzy's health decline. He was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. He had major spinal surgeries. He's fallen at home. He's canceled tours. And yet, he always says, "I'll be back." Tony admires that spirit. "He's the toughest person I know," Tony said, "but I worry about him. I really do." Tony knows how fragile life can be. He lost friends, like Ronnie James Dio, and even faced cancer himself. And now, seeing Ozzy in pain, the fear is real. What if that really was the last time? Tony wonders. It's a question no fan wants to face, but it's one Tony lives with every day. "I just want him to be okay," Tony said. He doesn't care if Ozzy ever tours again. He just wants him to be happy, to be at peace, to know that what they built together, Black Sabbath, the music, the legacy, will live forever, and that he, Tony, will always be there if Ozzy ever needs him. The legacy they built. Black Sabbath didn't just change music, they changed everything. Heavy metal, as we know it, wouldn't exist without Tony and Ozzy. From Iron Man to War Pigs, they wrote anthems that still shake stadiums today. They weren't polished, they weren't safe, they were raw, real, and dark, and that's what made them powerful. Even as the years passed and new bands came and went, Sabbath remained sacred. And at the heart of it, that electric connection between Iommi's guitar and Ozzy's voice. Now, as both men enter the final chapters of their lives, that legacy feels more important than ever. Because it's not just about songs, it's about survival, brotherhood, and truth. And in the quiet moments, like that last visit, it's about love. A deep, strange, lifelong love between two very different men. One quiet and focused, the other wild and unpredictable. But together, they were unstoppable. What the future holds, Tony doesn't know if he'll ever see Ozzy again, and that breaks his heart. But he holds on to the memories, the music, the laughs, and that one final message Ozzy gave him. "I'm glad we played one last time." For Tony, that's enough. It was real, it was honest, and it reminded him why they started this journey in the first place. Not for fame, not for money, but because they loved the music and each other. Tony still writes music, he still plays guitar every day. And he prays for Ozzy. Maybe, just maybe, there'll be one more moment, another cup of tea, another laugh, another story. But if not, Tony is at peace, because he knows what they built together can never be broken, not by illness, not by age, not even by death. Tony Iommi's story about Ozzy isn't just about two rock stars growing old. It's about something bigger, a reminder that time waits for no one, that even legends are human, that the people who drive us crazy are often the ones we love most, and that sometimes the most powerful moments happen in silence. A look, a hug, a few words. "I'm glad we played one last time." That sentence will stay with Tony forever. And now, it stays with us too, because whether Ozzy sings again or not, whether he steps on stage again or not, he's already said the most important words, and Tony heard them, loud and clear, just like the rest of the world heard him, and them, when they first plugged in their amps and made history. Black Sabbath may never play again, but their story, it's eternal.